Hello, Internet, and today we bring you the second episode of the Rogue Canon Gaming Podcast. Today I'm here with just me and Clue. We were unable to get a third today simply because people are moving around, college has started, it's hard to get hold of people right now, so it'll just be me and Clue for today. And really, today I want to bring back some things we were talking about last podcast, which was actually a few weeks ago. We've been delayed a little bit with our recording here. So, is there anything you want to say before we get started, Clue?
No, not really. Hopefully, some of my subscribers will migrate over onto the Rogue Gaming channel. I'm going to be putting up a video pretty soon. We're going to be doing lots of new videos, so hopefully you guys will stick around and check them all out. And don't forget to subscribe and rate the videos.
Excellent. Yeah, I tried to get some of my subscribers to come over. I'm not sure how successful I was on that, but it doesn't bother me too much at the moment.
Yeah.
So, where do you want to get started? You want to get started with where we left off here with, I believe we were going into Star Wars: The Old Republic. We were on the topic of MMOs, I believe, when we cut off. So,
Yes.
I think we can start there.
Yeah, we can start around there. I believe we missed. Cataclysm actually had a limited edition package.
Oh yeah, I remember that now.
Well,
When we were on the topic of collector's editions and the like, we probably should have mentioned Cataclysm actually does have like a $80 collector's edition that comes with like art books and the like. I forgot to mention that, but it would have fit better into our last conversation. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just think it's funny though. But I mean, if there's a market for it, and which there clearly is, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. I guess.
That's true.
Some people do like the artwork and stuff. So, for World of Warcraft Cataclysm, was there anything else that we wanted to add to that, or?
Well, I mean, truthfully, I've watched a lot of footage actually of the beta since the last video. And I had also, looked into more about Cataclysm because I've actually, a couple friends have come to me, and the old WoW friends from like 2006, 2007, and they had requested that I come back and join them when Cataclysm launches. They actually wanted me to get Wrath and play with them now, and I kind of like weighed the pros and the cons, and I thought to myself, would I actually enjoy the game if I came back, playing retail? Just would I actually enjoy the time with these people? And I mean, in all honesty, I almost considered it. I just figured maybe I would just enjoy the game casually like everybody else and just kind of like put the past behind. But watching Cataclysm videos and reading a lot of the information, I actually couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm still really on the fence if I actually will even try it. Maybe for the sake of reviews or videos, I might perhaps get it and mess around with it a little bit. But as if playing it, I don't know, I just don't think I could play it on a serious level again, for one, and it really depends on the content. What I've seen so far in Cataclysm didn't impress me. It had some nice graphics, some new effects. Some of the encounters looked pretty cool, but for the most part, it seems like generally a lot of the content is still over easy. Just, I don't know, there's just something missing since, I mean, even Burning Crusade had some pretty interesting dungeons and some hard encounters, but it seems like since Wrath, it's become really just, it seems like every instance is just AoE mobs, every group. And I don't know, it's lost a lot of its appeal to me, so.
Yeah, I think some of the problem of that is not only, if anyone has played pre-BC WoW, the classes back then weren't as fine cut, and a lot of the items also didn't really match to each class. So like, if you were playing a feral druid, I mean, you basically had to use rogue gear, but I mean, there's no tier set for feral druids, right? So like, it made feral druids kind of useless. So it made rogues look a lot better than feral druids. And like, what's been slowly happening is that Blizzard's been slowly trying to make all classes equal. Aside from having a couple like unique things, like shamans will have shocks, as well as like lightning bolt and stuff, and mages just have their normal mage stuff. So like it's a little bit different, but They basically
It
just
seems
made
like
it
they're
so,
trying to make all the parts of the game their own full thing. So if you go Feral Druid, you're going to get gear for Feral Druids. You're going to get, you know,
yeah,
your spec's going to be fine-tuned and useful in situations where you'd expect a Feral Druid to be useful. Such as, your
yeah.
DPS role is more suited now if you are a Feral Druid. And you can now, stack up against a rogue in a raid or a group. So
Yeah, see, I think that's like it's not so much part of the problem, but like what's slowly been happening, especially with even in pre-BC, it was still pretty balanced, right? Like paladins were the AoE tanks, druids were like the single target tanks, and warriors were like the mix of both, kind of like with thunderclap and cleave and stuff. They can
yeah,
AoE tank, but they can't tank like 20 units. They can tank like 2 or 3. And then like they added druids, so druids started AoE tanking with like swipe, and they have like this ability I think they can use, and it makes their maul like AoE, like hit like 3 targets and stuff, and like they're making it so all the classes are all the same, and they gave like paladins and death knights like a shield wall type ability and stuff like that. So it's like they're making all the tanks all the same, and there's not really much
yeah.
of a difference.
That's
You know
that's
what I
what
mean?
bothered me. Is it seems like a lot of the game has really lost a lot of its individual charm. Like where your character was maybe in one group you felt kind of useless, and then in the next group you were like the main thing. You were what's needed. Like for instance, like a warlock. Some people prefer to have a mage for DPS in some groups, but other raids and other instances needed a warlock to fill
Yeah,
that slot because they had banish and stuff. I know now shamans can banish elementals or something. I know they can
yeah.
now.
I know they have that hex. I'm not sure about banishing stuff, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised with anything.
I think I read somewhere in Cataclysm that now they have something that lets them control, do
Okay.
some crowd control. Which, on a side note, it's great that Blizzard is bringing crowd control back to the game. I've seen, Wrath of the Lich King had very little, and it seems like Cataclysm, they're trying to bring the aspect of crowd control back. I remember some of the videos I had watched, you have to sheep stuff, and you have to limit what you fight. So that's good. But, in order for, I don't want to call myself super hardcore, but in order for, like, the non-casual gamers to want to come back to Cataclysm, they're going to really have to make some difficult content, or at least separate the difficult content from the easy content, so that there's a clear line. Like, for instance, raids. Raids should always be hard. I don't care if the 5-mans are impossible, or if the 10-mans are hard, but, your raids should be, they should still be a challenge, no matter what skill level you are.
Yeah, and another thing too with the hardcore or non-casual players and the casual players is that another thing too that's been kind of, as well as the classes individually getting better with each talent spec. Another thing too is gear, because in pre-BC to have full blue was like amazing. Like if you had full blue, you were good. Like you put months of work into getting full blue.
And arguably, sometimes, depending on your spec, being full blue is actually better than being in your epic tier sets. So
Yeah,
there was some mixing.
and for like even in Burning Crusade, I mean, you were getting like level 66, 67 blues from like random instances or random quests, which was nice. But when you went into that first raid, you didn't have any green items. Like you were full blue. And back in pre-BC, you'd go into like UBRS, you'd go into Molten Core, Zul'Grub, and you'd have some greens on you. Like you'd have like Pantaloons of the Bear. It's just like it with the progressing of gear, they haven't really progressed the difficulty of raids with the progressing of gear and talents. And at this point, talents and gear are just completely surpassing how difficult the mobs are, and it unbalances it. It makes it a little too easy
For basically any player, really. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's able to get the gear, so even gear check fights are pretty much non-existent because everybody's got the gear anyway. So
Yeah.
another thing that really bothers me actually is the lack of actual gear progression. I know a lot of people didn't like gear progression pre-BC, but a lot of people really did like it. I mean, you should have to see this content before you can see the next content. I mean, obviously you want people to be able to see everything from a design standpoint. You don't want 80% of your player base to never see the Lich King. but at the same time, I mean, do you really sacrifice the whole gameplay mechanic of actually doing the dungeon? Because the way I see it, I mean, right now they have it so every time a new set of progression comes out, the old set becomes much easier to obtain with like those tokens or whatever.
Yeah,
And
that's another problem too, because
yeah, that just really kills it to me.
You go into an instance and like a heroic, and you get these tokens, and then you trade in these tokens for like gear that's like equal to like ice crown shit. Like, so it's like, okay, so in other words, you're basically skipping all the previous set. And same thing with PvP gear. It's like, see, they're trying to make it so people can see end game content, but then they're missing all the middle game content. Like,
yeah,
they're missing
same as like
the 5-man instances and the littler instances that help you gear up to get into the raids. They're just going, okay, you have blues, now you have full epic PvP or token gear, and then you just go in and, or even crafted gear. And you just go in and just destroy everything, right? Like it's kind of
it seems just kind of redundant. Like, what is even the point of what is the point of even making that new set? Really, why don't you just keep the old set and wait till people? I don't know. There's some sort of system that they're missing here.
That's the best thing about when in pre-BC was that in order to do MC, you needed a lot of fire resist. So that made like Dark Iron and your tier set really important because it had fire resist in it.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think the game's severely missing.
In most raids, only the tank needs resistance.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't need resistance, then you can pretty much, it's like, oh, you need like 100 resist for this boss fight, like, nothing at all, right?
And not to mention there's items that add like 60 now instead of the old like 5 and 10 like we used to remember.
Yeah, and I think skills as well too. Like I think most like the shaman totems add like 120 fire resist, or even 160 fire resist. And like the shadow priest buff is probably like 120 shadow resist, and like everything's scaled up, but like the amount of resist you need like didn't really change. Like it went down, if anything. Because in like Molten Core, you need like a ton of fire resist to be your tank, like a ton. Like what was it, like 300 or something, if not more?
Yeah, you need it a lot. Now I think we probably sound like a broken record now talking about World of Warcraft again.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I will continue to check out Cataclysm. I did, I enjoyed World of Warcraft so much back in the day that it is always tempting to want to come back. I mean, I would have loved to see Wrath of the Lich King content had it been at the same difficulty as pre-BC. I mean, the content is always interesting. You always want to see the content.
Yeah, and
but
even Burning Crusade was pretty fun. I played through some of Burning Crusade. I didn't really get to see any 25-man raid instances because I was on dial-up, but like I do Karzan and stuff, and like the fights were challenging. I mean, for someone like me, it wasn't really that challenging for me, but just like you just needed pretty decent gear, and like some of the fights were really like especially Nether Spite, the one with the portals and the beams. If someone messes up, then the raid is like messed up. Like it's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it seems like that's missing a lot now.
And like the last boss for that Karzan was, okay, so I basically just tank him against this wall, and hopefully we don't get an infernal drop on top of me. Like, it's like, hopefully. It was just way too easy. Like, the boss, like, we did the boss, and like, I had like pretty shit gear, and I could easily just tank him, and we did it. And I mean, while it's good, sometimes you do get lucky, and you do get, you do down a boss and when against all odds, but like a real boss like Nether Spite was just like, okay, if you fuck up, if anyone fucks up, the raid is basically wiped.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing, especially with some of the later bosses in a lot of the raids, is that if one person messes up, it should wipe the raid, like, basically. Because with the gear and everything that's so good, it's just like, if one person, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, people should know their roles if they're wearing, full tier 10 epic. They should know what they're doing. I mean, I think that's another problem, is that since everybody's getting the gear so easy, when they actually do get to the end game, tier 10 raid or whatever the hell it is, they don't know what to do because they skipped all the other content to get there.
Yeah, and it just doesn't,